Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. I had a different type of video planned for today, but with this news coming out, I figured I would change things up. This one has been years in the making and finally paves the way to enter this next chapter of Tesla's AI growth without the overhang. That's because Elon's 2018 pay package, which initially was worth $56 billion, was restored by the Delaware Supreme Court. This 2 years after the lower court struck it down, calling it unfathomable. And I think this part actually gets severely overlooked. The ruling means Elon can finally get paid for his work since 2018, which we've known, when he transformed Tesla from a struggling startup to one of the world's most valuable companies. On the surface, that might seem like nothing, but don't forget, in 2018, that's when Tesla almost went bankrupt. Elon has said numerous times Tesla was weeks away, and that was the Model 3 production hell. So Elon navigated the ship through those stormy waters to get Tesla to where it is today. And plenty of people that came into the Tesla story after 2018 might not even know that's part of the story. As a reminder, the 2018 pay deal provided Elon options to acquire roughly 304 million shares at a deeply discounted price if the company hit different milestones, which it did. At the time, it was worth $56 billion, but thanks to Tesla stock appreciation since, the value is now upwards of $120 billion. But that was early November, so if you use the share price as of today, it's more like $146 billion. The options represent about 9% of Tesla's outstanding stock. In the ruling, they said, "We reverse the Court of Chancery's rescission remedy and award $1 in nominal damages." In the decision today, the Delaware Supreme Court judges said the lower court's decision to cancel the 2018 pay plan was too extreme of a remedy, and the lower court did not give Tesla a chance to say what a fair compensation ought to be. And that's just because the lower court said that it was all or nothing for Elon. So they were effectively trying to rescind the entire pay package, meaning Elon would get nothing. And essentially, they didn't leave room for anything else. A professor at Columbia told CNBC, while this decision today restores Elon's 2018 pay plan, it leaves the rest of the lower court's decision unaddressed and intact. The court had previously decided Elon was a controlling shareholder of Tesla and that the Tesla board and he arranged an unfair pay plan for Elon. None of that was reversed in this decision. This can be confusing on the surface, so I will explain all of this here shortly. But the short of it is this is part of the reason why the plaintiff's attorneys might still get a payout. So remember, this was the case where Richard Tornetta, with 9 shares in his lawyers, initially requested $6 billion in Tesla stock as fees based on a perceived benefit they created for Tesla by fighting to rescind that original pay package. The lower court ultimately awarded them $345 million, but this is likely to be adjusted after this Supreme Court reversal. But the biggest takeaway for now is that Elon's 2018 pay package is fully restored, and that $1 will symbolically go to Richard Tornetta for nominal damages. This type of outcome usually happens when the court finds that someone technically did something wrong, like an actual legal violation, but it didn't really cause any harm. Or in this case, fixing the problem by removing Elon's entire pay package, which the Supreme Court decided that was way too harsh and that would be unfair. So in that event, the court can still award these nominal damages. So it's essentially the court saying, yes, there was technically a foul or a breach here, but there should not be a significant penalty paid. Which is why I said that $1 is mostly symbolic. So it acknowledges that Tornetta won to some degree on a technicality, which in this case was that some of Tesla's fiduciary duties were breached, but ultimately it's a signal that there was no real financial harm worth compensating. And the Supreme Court said nobody was hurt to deserve any sort of big payout, and rescinding the pay package would have done more damage than it would have helped anyone. But everyone's question, why are the plaintiffs' attorneys still getting paid? The Supreme Court reversed only the remedy, the rescission, or again, the removal of the entire 2018 pay package, but it upheld liability findings in part, which goes back to the quotes from the Columbia law professor, which is why I shared those. The Supreme Court did not address all of those fully. So, the fee award from the lower court, that $345 million, is likely to be adjusted downward significantly, but some amount is likely to stand. And that's because, as it is right now, the plaintiff's lawyers achieved a partial victory by establishing some fiduciary breaches. In appeals like this, fee awards are usually revisited or reduced when the plaintiff no longer wins the case fully. So basically, the Supreme Court was focused on restoring the package, not explicitly focused on what the fees will ultimately be. So the argument is because Tornetta's lawyers did some policing of corporate governance, they should be entitled to something. This is thanks to the corporate benefit doctrine that incentivizes lawyers to shed light on fiduciary breaches on behalf of shareholders, which does apply in contingency fee cases where they risk getting nothing, and that's what this one was. And as a reminder, the main breach that the plaintiff's lawyers exposed was 1, the lack of board independence from Elon, and 2, a lack of proper disclosures for shareholders. So, Tornetta's lawyers may be entitled to something, but for now, it's to be determined. And I certainly hope it's much lower than the $345 million it was going to be previously, and I'm confident that it will be. But that's not speculation, I'll share why in a second. And the Supreme Court did explicitly rule that the plaintiff's attorneys do remain entitled to fees and expenses, including a multiplier of 4 times their base lodestar plus post-judgment interest. Again, because they highlighted some governance issues. Now, to explain that legalese, it's pretty simple actually. A base lodestar can just be thought of as the lawyer's normal billing rates, which in this case, let's just call it $13 million for the hours they actually worked and the research they did, etc. Using that number, that would mean the lower court applied a multiplier of over 25 to get to that $375 million award. And the multiplier can just be thought of like a bonus for the attorneys taking on a risky case. So if the base lodestar for Tornetta's attorneys is around $13 million for the billable hours that they worked, a 4x multiplier would put the new fee award somewhere in the neighborhood of $52 million. But there are other fees and interest, so that's certainly not a finalized number. It's just a rough ballpark of where the final fee could fall. And there will certainly be more negotiations happening at the lower court over the ultimate fee. But just to be clear, the Supreme Court ruled that completely rescinding or unwinding the 2018 pay package was too extreme and ultimately not fair, given what Elon achieved during the time. And so now the Supreme Court has effectively sent back any remaining disputes over the fee amount to the lower court to be sorted out there. So next up, as mentioned, there will likely be some negotiations over that fee, the one that Tesla would be likely to pay in this case. So even though the practical outcomes heavily favored Elon and Tesla here, with a full award being restored, in the process, the plaintiff's lawyers might still be entitled to some money for bringing some level of accountability to Tesla. And again, 2 of the primary drivers, mostly 1, the lack of board independence from Elon, and 2, a lack of proper disclosures to the shareholders. So this watchdog role, if you will, is basically encouraged in the law, meaning that lawyers can get rewarded even for partial success to encourage them to take on cases like this where they only get paid if they win, which is what we call a contingency case. And it's been on the screen, but one of the main reasons the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Tesla and Elon is because they decided that all parties to the transaction could not be restored to their status quo ante, and that Elon's pre-existing equity in Tesla cannot be substituted as consideration, which should have been obvious in my opinion. This was the whole argument that, well, Elon already owns enough Tesla stock, so why does he really need this Tesla stock? Which I think is bogus, and the Supreme Court agreed. So justice was served, and the Supreme Court did the right thing by recognizing Elon hit some incredible performance milestones over 6 years, and to earn nothing for that is just completely absurd. And yes, some of the justices had varying opinions on to what degree Tesla failed or breached its duties, but ultimately they agreed as a collective perspective that even if there were some issues, the punishment did not fit the crime. Remember, Tesla shareholders approved this plan 2 times, and that should have been the end of it. So we had to wait longer than we should have, but the outcome will mostly be the same, and whatever fee Tesla has to pay in the long run is going to be negligible, and we can now all move forward with Elon getting paid and getting motivated, and with this Tesla stock overhang being removed. Elon gets his roughly 304 million options with an exercise price around $23, and they expire January 2028, which is 10 years from the grant date. So Elon has until then to exercise them by paying the exercise price. And these do have a 5-year holding requirement on any shares acquired from Elon exercising these options, so he cannot sell them right away. In just rough math, Elon exercising these options would add about that 9% to Tesla's outstanding share count, which would be dilutive to shareholders, but will get Elon back up much closer to his 25% voting control. So if he's in the neighborhood of 13% now, this could take him up to around 22%. And don't forget about that bridge award we covered earlier this year, which was valued around $28 billion depending on share price fluctuations, but it was the 96 million share award. That one is now no longer needed and will likely be revoked or forfeited, or I guess they could treat it as an advance to offset this 2018 pay package being restored, but that's just speculation on my part and might complicate things unnecessarily. We'll leave that to the tax specialists, but the interim bridge award was always conditional on the outcome of this appeal, and Tesla's board structured it that way to be flexible no matter what happened with this Supreme Court ruling. And that's why I'm not going to get super specific with numbers when it comes to voting control and ownership, as we still need some dust to settle here, but in the weeks ahead, I'll make sure we get it all nailed down. But Elon has to be a happy camper now because, again, those options are worth around $146 billion with today's pricing, and they are fully vested since he hit all of those milestones years ago. And any massive accounting hit that Tesla might have had to take to the tune of $25-35 billion is now off the table, which should definitely be a relief. Even though it would have been a one-off and not a fundamental flaw with the company, it still likely would have been brutal and would have been misreported, and Tesla's financials would have been distorted, meaning the average viewer wouldn't know why. So it's just really nice that we don't have to worry about that anymore. So we can now all celebrate this chapter mostly being closed. We'll see what happens with the fees, but no matter what, it will not be course altering for Tesla. And so it's great to see Tesla shareholders get what they wanted, Elon and Tesla get what they wanted, and we can enter this next wave of AI growth focused on what really matters, with Elon paid, motivated, and locked in with his new pay package also in place that's totally unchanged from this ruling. Finally, after years of back and forth, payments from Meta's $725 million class action settlement started being sent to users. This was from the data sharing scandal a few years back, where millions of people had their data improperly shared with a political consulting firm. This behavior should not be surprising. We have $100 billion companies where their primary business model relies on extensive data collection, which is why I think it's paramount we all give our families the gift of our privacy back by signing up for Delete Me, the sponsor of this video. Delete Me has experts that do the dirty work of removing your personal information from these data brokers online so they can no longer profit from selling your information. In a world where it's hard to know who you can trust, just look at Delete Me's Trustpilot reviews. Companies on Trustpilot are not allowed to offer incentives or pay to hide reviews. And we know most reviews are usually negative, as people only leave them when they want to complain, and they don't when things work as it should. Despite that, Delete Me has outstanding reviews on Trustpilot, and even people leaving 4-star reviews had glowingly positive things to say. And let's be real, no one is going to spend hundreds of hours a quarter contacting all of these data brokers one by one, and since Delete Me is super affordable, I think it's an easy choice. So if you want to support Electrified and, more importantly, protect your family from nefarious actors, you can head to joindeleteme.com/electrified to get 20% off using my code Electrified linked below, or by using the QR code on the screen. Ashley and I went out and about today as we had a pretty nice snowstorm, so I wanted to put FSD to the test. While I remain very impressed with the performance in the snow overall, saw, today it became apparent that keeping cameras clean in real snowstorms where you have dirt and salt everywhere is going to be a challenge. Before this drive, I actually went to a spray car wash to clean the cameras and the wipers, and within 10 to 15 minutes after that, the snow would reaccumulate on the wipers, and no level of heating the wipers could stop the salt and dirt from streaking the windshield, and toward the end, FSD just would not engage at all. So this is a question mark for me in snowy areas and could be partially solved with Tesla having its own car wash bays for its robotaxis to run themselves through when they need it. But if no one's there to drive the cars when they get stuck, then obviously they'd have to find a way to get to those cleaning bays on their own. And there was one instance where the car started sliding, making a left turn, and I did decide to take over. Whether I had to or not is debatable. The car was coming down a pretty steep hill, making a left turn, and I did take over a little early, but I do like to push the limits. The problem was there was a pole directly in my path. So I love you all and want to provide valuable content, but if FSD did not correct course soon enough, I was not about to risk it in the name of science. And we went to a supercharger and it was backing in just fine until it kept going. And I ended up hitting the brakes to stop the car because I got scared it was going to hit the supercharger post. I took this picture. We were only a few inches away from the post. So sure, maybe the car would have stopped on its own, but even if it did, this was still too close for me, so the car was already late in stopping and got too close for comfort. So I wanted to share these little anecdotes as my last snow review was nearly flawless, and today we had some issues that I think are worth sharing. But as you can see, the conditions were actually pretty bad, but other than the cameras getting dirty and occluded, leading to the red hands takeover and those two interventions, it did handle the conditions really well the rest of the time, and there were plenty of other highlights in a short time of driving. And this was in our Model Y with snow tires, and specifically the Michelin X Ice snows. The other day we talked about Spy partnering with Tesla for that new framework for these two working together, and now they're announcing a 1.4 gigawatt hour project. If you missed it, Spy signed a framework agreement with Tesla for a series of battery energy storage projects in the region, several of which are already in progress. Spy and Tesla are both participating in the 1.4 gigawatt hour Mufasa storage project in the Netherlands, which will use 372 megapacks. Spy said this project will become the largest BESS facility in the Netherlands. The two companies also have projects in motion in France and Belgium, and they're saying this 1.4 gigawatt hour project using megapacks will be operational in the first half of 2027. The Cybercab was spotted testing on roads in Austin for the first time. The person that took the photo said someone was in the driver's seat, but he could not tell if there was a steering wheel. My guess, pure speculation, is that there would be a wheel so he can intervene if need be. And we still have a few months before production, but it's definitely going to be fun seeing this thing on the roads and will undoubtedly turn some heads. And you can see how small it looks compared to the other cars in this picture. And at this point, I really am super curious because of all of the debate. Do you guys think Tesla will sell this vehicle with a steering wheel and pedals for any amount of time? Just say yes or no, and I will know what you mean. Tesla has a new webpage, tesla.com/safety, that I will probably be sharing with a bunch of people. Not really anything that viewers of this channel won't be familiar with, but definitely nice to have this to share with other people who are still learning about Tesla. And basically, it just highlights all of the safety features that Teslas have that we have come to know, but many people don't know exists. And perhaps most importantly, why in the event of a collision, a Tesla is the vehicle you want to be in. Highlighting a lot of the engineering that's gone into crumple zones and everything else related to crash worthiness. And a lot of people still wonder about battery fires and accidents, and they say onboard systems will automatically disconnect the high voltage battery upon impact. If a battery fire does occur, the battery pack is designed to spread heat away from the cabin to protect occupants. And Tesla vehicle structures are designed to cushion and protect the battery in the event of an accident. Dan Priestley said, "Just drove drove the redesigned Semi, our customers are going to love it. We'll touch on a few other things I could have got into today, but we'll save those for next week, as I wanted this episode to be primarily about Elon getting his pay package after all. Tesla stock closed the day at $481.20, down 0.45%, while the NDX was up 1.31%. The volume was 26% above the average. Don't forget, check out Delete Me linked below. It could make a great gift for your family to take your privacy back, and thank you all for supporting the channel in that way. Hope you have a safe and wonderful weekend, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.